on, everybody? BobbyFi, recording solo today. We're just going to be doing a quick MLB show. It's a large slate. Cheats will be with us for live at 6 Eastern time. I'm going to focus on my favorite plays rather than going through every single game because I think it's probably more worthwhile. It'll save us some time and it'll get right to the point. There's a lot of weather issues on this slate. That's all I can say. Currently, I have the weather issues that I've got are New York and Baltimore, which is not terrible, but not ideal. Atlanta, Philly, which looks better. The Dodgers and Pittsburgh, which looks okay, but not perfect. Still a very small chance for a delay, I would say. And then the real games you got to worry about are Seattle at Detroit and Houston at Boston, as well as some pretty decent sized concerns in the Milwaukee-Cincinnati game. We're going to go through plays and we're going to talk about things aside from, those guys. And I'm going to pull up my screen in just a minute, but I do think we'll include those games as of right now, because I think that they all stand a good chance of playing. Boston's tended to play in some ugly weather so far this year. And that's the game probably with the highest level of weather risk. But it also has a great hitting environment. So you kind of want to be there. It just looks nice, hot, humid, wind blowing out. Everything is sort of going the right way over there in Boston. So I do like a Houston Boston more in stacks. We'll get into all the plays, but I just wanted to mention those little weather issues. So let's get into it. I had a good night last night. I finished sixth in the 121 single entry. I thought I was going to win it for a minute, but then lost it with the pitcher's points at the end. So I didn't quite get there. That would have been nice. I'm going to pull up this screen right here while we talk about it. And I also had a nice run in the walk-off. I did well in basketball. So it was a really good night for me, actually. Probably tripled my money overall. So can't complain, but obviously could always be better. But let's try and improve on it tonight. We're going to start with just talking about pitching. So the pitchers I've currently got in my lineups, and I've got it pulled up on my other screen because I don't want to share and get in trouble with DraftKings again. But the pitchers I'm using mostly, I have a slight lean to Bieber over Glasnow, but I love both of them. I don't think it's very much of a lean, and I'm very fine playing both of them. There's some decent value in some games, of course, depending on the weather. You've got guys like Arroyo at 2K, Odor at 2.7, Verdugo at 3.3, Garlic at 2.7, Diaz at 3.2. Wilkinson, if you're going that way, like there's just a bunch of different guys you can play for near minimum cost that are going to be able to save you some money in the long run. So I am going to just say the pitchers I've got in my first builds are Bieber, Glasnow the most, Boyd, Heaney, Gray, Pablo Lopez, and Walker Buehler. And Boyd, Heaney, Gray, and Lopez I have currently similar. It'll be less Lopez by the end. It'll be more Gray, probably a little less Boyd and a little less Heaney, and I'll probably spread that out with more Buehler. Right now I've got about 45% Bieber. He's my highest owned. And then, like I said, the other guys are in a pretty similar range, but I'll probably bump up Buehler and bump down the other guys as we see the lineups come out and see what kind of value we can get out there. But those are the guys. The reason I give the slight edge to Bieber here is that I like him going to the National League. Both lineups are not like terrible at all, St. Louis or Washington, but you do get a lot of righties in St. Louis, and Washington has still got some pretty decent hitters. So I like them both. I think you can play them together in cash if you wanted to. I also think the easy pivot down for most people would be Gray, but again, that game has weather concerns, which is never fun to roster pitcher on this size slate. I also think Alex Wood deserves some consideration. Just scrolling down the list, I do think Boyd has upside, but I also don't mind, you can always take a pivot with a guy like Boyd. And, Robbie Ray is another one of those guys who you could definitely consider, but I also don't mind the White Sox. I particularly love Tim Anderson with the power speed upside against a guy like Ray, who can obviously be run on. So that's pretty much what I'm doing at pitcher. For my stacks, as far as they go, I really like Philadelphia against Smiley. The odd part is, like, on a normal thing, I would like a different slate. I would say Smiley at 6,400 makes sense. I think he's actually got a good K prop today. It's not a good matchup for him, in my opinion. He's a guy who can labor, who tends to rely on getting corners and things like that. And you've got a patient-ish Philadelphia heart of their order, especially they're patient and they're better against lefties. You've got, I love Real Muto. He's the number one catcher to me today. Hoskins. I love Bryce Harper in the lefty. I think that his price is very reasonable. I don't think people are going to play much of McCutchen or Herrera. I think you can use them to fill out stacks. Smiley has often been hit hard by lefties in the past, so Herrera doesn't bother me. He also hits lefties pretty well, depending on where he cracks the order. You've got cheap guys like Bohm. Depending on where he is in the order, you can consider using him as well. And even Torreyes to finish out a stack at 3K. Those that's an interesting way to go. I feel like I mentioned the Houston-Boston game. Obviously, you can see the weather concerns over there. The priority play, especially on FanDuel, like Bregman is 3,100. Play him over there, but he's great. I love Bregman and Altuve on both sites, and they're both expensive over here. But I think that they are two of the interesting plays. I like in the outfield side of it for Houston. I like the Jordan Alvarez at 4,100, and even Kyle Tucker at 37. Even the lefty, especially if you're going to stack it up, you're hoping that Perez doesn't last too long. Another guy who's going to have a tough time pitching in Boston in this weather against this kind of a lineup. And then you can always go cheap, of course, in the outfield with Houston, with guys like, I guess you could consider Straw or McCormick. I would go a little higher on McCormick personally, but I think that they're both fine to fill out stacks. I like San Francisco. We all know that I, even unsuccessfully somewhat this year, I don't love playing teams in Texas, and I don't love stacking the Giants in general exactly. I like their team. I like what they've done, but they're a tough team to stack. I still like, I think Crawford, Lamont Wade in the outfield at 3,300, or you can use them at first base. Brandon Belt should be back today. If he is, obviously I like him quite a bit as well. Posey's expensive at catcher. I think I'd go Realmuto over him. And then you get Alex Dickerson, but he's 4K over here. He's 2,200, I believe, on FanDuel. So Alex Dickerson is another priority play on FanDuel that I'm not using as much over here. But I do like the Giants. Staying with the California teams, I like a little bit today. I don't love the Angels, but I love Rendon and Upton. I do love the A's, and I don't think anyone's going to be looking at the A's on this slate. It's partially to do with that I don't, Duplantier, I'm not worried about that. It's going to be, even if it's a somewhat of a bullpen game, that takes on a little bit of a different meaning when you're playing against Arizona. Arizona just, their bullpen is garbage. They're going to the American League here. I think the A's could tee off decent hitting weather in Oakland, considering it's Oakland. The priorities would be Olsen and Murphy would be my first two guys in. I don't mind if you want to mix in Jed Lowry, but Kemp is really cheap. Matt Chapman at 4,700 is a little expensive. No one's going to do that, but I don't think, again, you're going to get many people on this stack. And then Canna, Seth Brown in the outfield, depending on if it breaks that way. Of course, if Pinder gets in, it's a different story, but I think Seth Brown should bat in the middle of the order against the righties, as he's been doing. So I do like the Oakland stack is a little bit off the board. I like the Yankees prices, and I don't mind picking a few home run bats out here, especially Stanton, Judge. They both feel too cheap to me. It depends on who we get behind the plate, but either one I'd like. Pineda is not a guy who I'm worried about. I don't want to fully stack, even got LeMahieu cheap. I don't, and Urshela. But I think it does sort of lend itself to a stack just because of how cheap they are. But it's not like Pineda is the worst pitcher on the slate, but the Yankees, we know the power in that offense. Bit of a stadium downgrade, obviously, for them, but still a pretty decent hitter's park. And on the other side of that game, I'm more like the mini side of, I don't want to stack against Montgomery, but I like Donaldson, Garlick, and Cruz. You don't need to use them all together, but those are the guys who stand out to me the most on Minnesota side. Other stacks that I like a lot, I like the Orioles-Mets game on both sides a little bit. I don't want to go crazy with it. So far, the Zimmerman, and we haven't had so much success picking on him, but I think that there's certainly some guys who stand out to me, namely being Pete Alonso. If you wanted to do the stack, you could use Nito as your catcher at 3,100 instead of McCann, who's 2K more. You could, I don't mind Lindor, especially on FanDuel, where he's 30, I believe he's 2,900, excuse me. He swung the bat a little bit better, but hitting the ball harder lately. And I just feel a little bit better about him than I did a couple weeks ago. I think he's starting to come a little bit back into his own. And then not so much on DraftKings, but Kevin Pillar is 2.1 on FanDuel. I think it's a terrific price for Kevin Pillar against the lefty, possibly leading off tonight. That's where I'm looking. And then on the Orioles side, I like Trey Mancini. I know he's expensive, but he's one of the guys who I have at first base. So you don't like need to use any of these guys, but I like Mancini, Galvis, Mountcastle, and Santander in my Orioles stacks. That's the way that I'm sort of looking if I was going to go full stack. Other ones that I'm considering that are a little bit further behind for me would be the Tampa Bay Rays. Playing at home, never a fun stack to have because it's not like a great hitter's park, but this team has a lot of pop going against Leicester. It's Arozarena and Margot are the righties you've used from the outfield. I don't mind Meadows in any matchup. He's so expensive, but I'm FanDuel a little more reasonable. Brandon Lau. You've got Yandy Diaz to keep it cheap if you want to use him at first or third for 3,200. I'd probably use him more at first. I like a lot of third baseman today, but I actually, I like a lot of first baseman too. So it's kind of a tough call there. But I think that there's just enough options there that you could definitely consider them. The Reds, should that game play as a mini stack against Hauser, I think are interesting, particularly like Jesse Winker. And then we've got the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers the offense is coming back to life. We've got everybody getting healthy. Not everybody yet, but it's getting there, assuming Muncy's in the lineup. But against Brubaker, and I don't believe too much in that Pittsburgh bullpen. Again, we got a little bit of weather concerns in this game, but Mookie Betts is now 4,900, too cheap. Cody Bellinger, and then you've got Gavin Lux if you want to save a little money at short. I really, I think the Dodgers are a good stack, but I think if I'm prioritizing stacks, it's hard with the weather because it's weighing in on my decisions. But it's somewhere. The Phils are probably up there with number one right now. The Phils, A's, Houston, I have all very similar, and then I have the Orioles, Mets more as mini stacks, and then the Giants as I want to take a shot against Lyles in that bullpen. And then I have a bunch of minis that I'm sort of putting together. The Dodgers, I don't mind full or mini. White Sox against Ray. We know Robbie Ray's going to give up home runs and stolen bases, so maybe you go with a mini stack of the White Sox. I like Tim Anderson and Jose Abreu quite a bit. Expensive, but I like them. And then I mentioned the Reds and Kansas City against Heaney, sort of with the same theory that you go against Ray. These guys either light it up or get blown up most of the time. And the off the board one that I don't want to fully stack, but I do like the reverse splits against the reverse splits Davies. I don't mind Tatis and Machado as one-offs. Machado's swinging a good bat lately and is a little too cheap, I believe, over here. Yeah, they've got him actually way too cheap. He's 4,100, which has got homered in 2 of the last 3 games, and I think he's starting to hit the ball, and I like that spot a little bit for the Padres. Favorite individual bats on the slate. As of right now, the guys who I've got the most of: Betts, Hoskins, Alonso, Winker, Bregman, Realmuto, Harper, Galvis, JD Martinez if he's in the lineup. I've got a million pivots if he's not. There's a bunch of guys in that price range who I mentioned, Judge just for one. Tim Anderson, Giancarlo Stanton, Judge, Nelson Cruz, Donaldson. To save money, Wilkinson, Arroyo, Verdugo, Diaz, Odor, and Kyle Garlick all stand out. Dickerson and Pilar on FanDuel. Anyway, guys, and Hoskins is actually too cheap on FanDuel as well. But a lot of ways you can go today. I think that's hopefully just a good way to get you guys started. I don't have pitchers on data yet. We'll cover all that stuff at 6 Eastern. But we got to keep an eye on the weather as well. So that's obviously weighing some of my early decisions in my early builds. Anyway, good luck to everybody tonight. I hope we'll see you at the top of the leaderboards again. And let's keep it cruising, guys. Let's get active in Discord and talk about any plays you want. I'll be in there all day. So pop in any thoughts, any questions, and I'll be there to answer. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys at the top of the leaderboard tonight.